Philadelphia Mayor Sherelle Parker is going to have a massive problem on her hands with SEPTA announcing it's going to raise fares additional to the point of 21.5%, and they're considering shutting down some very important routes that people take every day. Tyrone Bowman Live, welcome to the program. In a few moments, I'm going to get down to this article as written by the Air Rendell from Billy Penn at WHYY. But let me tell you what Tyrone Bowman Live is. This is a serious program here. I cover the news from an entirely different perspective. It's not fun and games over here on this channel. I cover things that are important to people, from politics to religion to finance to business to commerce, things that can really open up people's minds and help make a difference in their lives. So for those of you who have subscribed to Tyrone Bowman Live, thank you for subscribing. To those of you that are looking for entertainment and silly stuff, this is not the channel for you. All right? So let's get down to this. Philly, listen up, because it's all going down. A big announcement was made. SEPTA will raise fares nearly 30% by January and prepare to shut down dozens of routes after the state legislature declined to approve a funding boost for the beleaguered agency. The Republican-led state legislature, might I add, and I'm quite sure they're taking their orders from the MAGA-in-chief himself, because you know they all come from the same lot of people, and they all deal with the same pages from the same playbook. The measures are expected to cause a 23% drop in ridership and revenues and lead to a death spiral of further fare increases and service cuts that will make public transit no longer relevant in Philadelphia, and the region chief operating officer, Scott Sawyer, said Tuesday. We've been pushed to a position where we are managing the decline of SEPTA, short for the acronym stands for Southeastern Public Transportation Authority, the public transportation system that serves one of the largest metropolitan areas in the country and powers the economy of our region and the Commonwealth, Sawyer said at a press conference. While other states are investing in new services and infrastructure, we will be mothballing our vehicles and shuttering our stations. Airlines will become so infrequent that they will be useless to most of our customers, he said. The 5-county transit agency has been warning for months that the end of federal pandemic relief aid had left it with a $240 million annual budget gap that would lead to higher fares and less service unless the state stepped in with a permanent funding increase. Back in February, as part of annual budget negotiations, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro proposed spending more sales tax revenue on transit agencies across the state, including $161 million more per year for SEPTA. The Republican-led state Senate declined to take up the measure or an alternate idea of funding transit and transportation through a new tax on video gambling machines. The legislature's latest scheduled session day for the year is Wednesday, making it unlikely it will come up with a last-minute rescue plan. This is the result of inaction. This is the result of not having a long-term funding solution, Sawyer said. All of our stakeholders and all of our legislative allies have tried tremendously to get a solution across the finish line. It didn't happen. The reason why it didn't happen because the obstructionists and the do-nothing Republican-led Senate in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania refused to do anything that's going to make the Democrats look good. That is the bottom line. Let's just tell it the way it is. We're not going to pussyfoot with it. We're not going to play with it. They take their orders from Donald Trump. They're part of that MAGA racist movement. And what are they doing? They are obstructing. They are deliberately wanting to shut down the transportation system because they know who it's going to affect mostly. And this is the reason why, ladies and gentlemen, we got to get our resources together. And if we come up with a plan, trust me, with an entirely different transportation system, they will sing a different tune. Don't tell me it can't be done. because boycotting worked during the 50s, boycotting worked during the 60s during the civil rights movement, when the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. led a massive boycott down in Selma, Alabama, and they brought that racist transportation system to a grinding halt for 1 year. And they darn near went bankrupt until the so-called Concerned Citizens Council, which was a bunch of racist white men, got together and they tried to sue the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in an effort to try to make them ride the buses again. No, you're not going to make them ride the bus and pay full fare and then tell them they got to give up their seats to somebody white and go cram up in the back of the bus. So don't tell me what the power of boycotting won't do. The problem is most people are cowards. You're afraid to stand up for what is right, but you're brave when it comes to doing the wrong thing. You're afraid to take a stand for your own civil rights. You're afraid to take a stand so that your children and your grandchildren can live in a nation long after you're gone where they don't have to be subjugated to the bigotry and the hatred and the racism that's running rampant through the land. And it's going to get worse. We haven't seen nothing yet. So start taking a stand. Stop letting these people tell you what you can and cannot do. The move comes as SEPTA also faces a possible strike by its transit workers union, whose contract expired last week. The agency wants to reach an agreement on a fair contract, Sawyer said, but can't do so without the promise of more state funding, because y'all want the workers to give up the concessions that they gained from the last strike, and that's not right and that's not fair. The shareholders and the stakeholders aren't giving up any money. The CEO and the COO aren't giving up any money. So why do the workers have to give up money and give up their health care benefits? SEPTA was already planning a relatively modest fare hike, its first in 7 years, which will raise the prices of rides by an average of 7.5% as of December 1. The increase announced Tuesday will raise fares an additional 21.5% on January 1. The combined effect will be to increase the fare for rides within Philadelphia to $2.90, up from $2.50 for the current base fare, and from $2 when paying with SEPTA Key or an app. A weekly TransPass will go from $25.50 to $31, and a monthly TransPass from $96 to $116. On the regional rail, single ride weekday fares will climb from $4 to $5 for a Zone 1 trip, $5.50 to $6.50 for a Zone 2 trip, $6.50 to $7.75 for a Zone 3, and $7.50 from $7.50 to $8.75 for a Zone 4 fare. Trail passes increase include a new $69.75 price for the weekly Anywhere Pass and $255 for a monthly Anywhere Pass, up from $204 now. SEPTA posted a full list of proposed increases ahead of planned public hearings on the changes. Those will take place on December 13th at 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. at the Pennsylvania Convention Center. Make your voices heard. Take the time to go to the Pennsylvania Convention Center on December 13th at 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Don't just sit by and idly let things happen and you don't voice your opposition to it. You don't voice your opinion to it. You won't take a stand against it and then complain when it happens. Just like millions of people are complaining about the outcome of the election, but millions of people didn't vote either. So what are you complaining about? Taking into account the expected drop in ridership, the higher fares will result in a $23 million revenue increase for SEPTA in the 2025 fiscal year and $45 million the next year, officials said. They will get the agency through this year, but will not close the structural budget gap. Sawyer, who will become SEPTA's interim general manager later this month when the agency's current leadership, Leslie Richards, steps down, said a 20% cut in services is still being finalized and will be announced early in 2025. Dozens of routes will be eliminated, and those that remain would operate with significantly less frequency, he said. meaning it's going to take longer for a bus to come, y'all. So you better get up out of the house early if you got something to do, and don't be messing around, playing around in your hair and stuff all day long. Get out and handle your business early so you don't get stuck. Okay, that's what that means, translated. So he says, I'm not talking about bus routes or even just rail routes. It's everywhere. It's the whole system. Every mode, every county we serve will see cuts. We will continue some version of early mode, we will continue some version of every mode, but depending on the severity of the cut, some customers just won't be able to use it. And the service that's left behind could be so crowded that there wouldn't be no room for everyone. So there's that effect as well, that whatever we put out there would be in such high demand that we would leave people behind, he said. Democratic State Representative Ben Waxman, who represents parts of Philadelphia, has said he expects at least 2 regional rail lines will be completely shut down and several others will be shortened and run fewer trains. Y'all better listen to me, and you better listen to me carefully. You see who this is beginning to affect? It's not just affecting black people, it's affecting white people too. You all thought you were voting against black people, but what you're doing, you put a man in office that's going to make it just as hard for y'all as he's going to make it just as hard for black people. And he's going to raise taxes on y'all, just like he's going to raise taxes on us. And then you're going to be mad that you voted for him. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. It's too late. The die has already been cast. The poison is spreading. You made your decisions. So don't start crying and whining when you begin to feel the effects of Trumponomics. And that's what I'm calling it, Trumponomics. Because when Trumponomics goes into effect, the only people that are going to prosper are going to be his billionaire, trillionaire, zillionaire friends, and the hell with everybody else. That's how it's going to go down. So regional rail lines will be completely shut down, and several others will be shortened and run fewer trains. Community activists in Northwest Philly have said they fear the Chestnut Hill West line could be the first to go because it has historically had low ridership. Asked whether the agency will also lay off any staff at its headquarters on Market Street in Center City. Sawyer said nothing is off the table at this point, including layoffs and salary reductions. It's coming. Y'all better start making plans. It's coming. Don't sit around and wait to get fired. Don't sit around and wait for them to tell you got to take a $5,000 pay cut or a $10,000 pay cut just to have a job. You tap into your 401k before SEPTA don't have any more money left and get your money out of there. Make plans now. You're being forewarned through this program what's coming. So don't sit around and let it happen. Take your destiny into your own hands. Democratic legislators and transit advocates have been expressing increasing alarm for the last few months over the diminishing prospects of a state budget fix for SEPTA. On Tuesday, Council member Jamie Gaither blamed Republicans in Harrisburg for the crisis and called on them to prevent this irreversible death spiral. See, that's why I can't be a politician. I'd raise so much hell in Harrisburg that you're going to have to vote. Yay or nay. Ain't nobody going nowhere. Recess ain't happening. Vacation ain't happening. Nothing is happening. These politicians better learn to stop being cowards. Learn how to use the media and social media to your advantage. Open your freaking mouths, state legislators and Congress people. Open your mouths and learn how to raise hell for your people and fight for them. Don't just go up and sit up in your cozy offices up in Harrisburg and with your nice air conditioners and your perks that come along with being a politician. Fight for the constituency. Fight for the people who sent you there. Hit the streets. Hold demonstrations. Protest. Don't take it lying down. And if SEPTA wants to do that, then shut SEPTA down. They can't have a system if we don't ride it. They can't increase fares if we demand that the fares be lowered. People can only do to you what you allow them to do. My constituents in West and Southwest Philly rely on SEPTA to get to work, school, healthcare, and other essentials. Reliable public transportation is absolutely essential to the economic success of both my constituents and the Commonwealth. I shudder to think about the catastrophic damage that will be done if SEPTA's proposed fare increases and service cuts go into effect, she said. She called for the Senate to pass House Bill 2625, which has passed in the Democratic-led House. It would increase the percentage of sales and use tax collections transferred to the state's public transportation trust fund from 4.4% to 6.15% along the lines of Shapiro's proposal. Well, if you're going to increase taxes, what is the increase of taxation for? You ever heard of taxation without representation? What do you think the Boston Tea Party was about? It wasn't about tea. It was about taxation without representation. That's what it was about. The people got tired of being taxed and taxed and taxed and taxed, while the kings and the queens and the potentates and the politicians were living their lives. This is what's going on in the nation and the world today. The average man and woman, black and white, are having a hard way to go. And those that in between are having a hard way to go. Why sit back and complain when you can change things? You and I have the power and the authority to change things. I'm telling you, I meant what I said. If I was a politician, I'd be raising hell every day of the week on behalf of those that I serve. And you're not just going to come into the community and devastate the community and ravage the community, outsource jobs, take advantage of people, pay them little to nothing for their homes, and then gentrify everything, and then you want to sell the house for 10 times the amount of what it once was. That ain't right, y'all. Point blank, it ain't right. In old-fashioned, plain black vernacular, it ain't right. It's wrong. The governor believes it's past time for the Senate to send this funding to his desk to support mass transit all across our Commonwealth, drive economic growth, and ensure Pennsylvanians can get to their destinations safely and efficiently, Shapiro said. As a stopgap measure, the Transit Forward Philadelphia Advocacy Coalition says Shapiro should use his executive authority to shift some federal highway funding to transit, as Governor Ed Rendell did in 2005 during a previous budget impasse and threatened to do in 2010. That's what you should do. If you got the power, use it. What is power for if you don't use it? It's useless if you don't use it. The group says the money could go into SEPTA's capital projects budget and free up some dollars for operations, allowing the agency to put off fare hikes and service cuts. Bonda declined to comment on whether Shapiro is considering flexing federal funding, and Sawyer said he had not heard about any such plans. I'm aware that something like that happened years ago, but I'm not aware of anything with any specificity coming from Harrisburg at this point, he said. He said the budget crisis will not immediately affect capital projects. Of course not. That are already funded, such as $724 million contract to replace cars on the Market Frankfurt L. All they do is tear it up every time you fix it. Every time they fix the L up, they only fix up from 2nd Street down to 15th Street, maybe down to 30th, that's it. That's where it stops at. SEPTA had previously said fare hikes and service cuts would not be announced until 2025. That reminds me of Project 2025. If Shapiro and the legislature didn't agree on a budget boost, the announcement ended up coming on the same day that the Senate held its first meeting since the election. But Sawyer said it was not timed to pressure the legislature act. I'm not here to deliver a message. I'm here to convey to our customers and our advocates, anyone who has a need, to know that this is the result. This is the fiscal cliff that we've been talking about for several years now. This is the end without a permanent funding solution. This is what's going to happen at the start of next year, he said. Sawyer noted that he started at SEPTA as a train operator 34 years ago, and his father worked for the agency as well. This is it. Hold on for a minute, beloved. Pardon me, ladies and gentlemen, Tyrone Bowman live. I had to take a quick break there. Let's get back to this article. This is a family business. This is what my family does. This is what many of SEPTA's families do, he said. I wouldn't be here in front of you today without SEPTA, and there are so many people just like me. So it's completely heartbreaking to see us in a state of decline. That doesn't have to happen. He argued that SEPTA staff have done our part to meet various challenges in recent years, including maintaining service during the pandemic, increasing cleaning and safety efforts to combat a surge of crime and disorder on the system, and coping with inflation that increased costs for fuel, power, and supplies. Serious crime is down, customer service scores and ridership are up compared to during the pandemic, and the agency has been advancing long-term initiatives like the Bus Revolution Network redesign, although that will now have to be scaled back. He said it has cut costs and added revenues through reinstating parking fees at regional rail station lots. It's just increase, increase, increase all around, no matter what you say. We want more reliable service for our customers. We want to grow. We want to do the opposite of what we're proposing here today, Sawyer said. But notice what this article did not say. It did not talk about eliminating listen, notice what the article did not say. It did not talk about eliminating any services in the suburban areas. It didn't talk about eliminating services up in Westchester and all these other places in Roxborough. All these services are going to be eliminated down into the metropolitan areas where everyday people are affected. You're being warned tonight. Make an alternative plan. Don't sit back and let stuff happen and you just gripe and complain about it. Allowing SEPTA to go over the fiscal cliff and forcing massive fare increases and service cuts will result in a net loss to our society, he said. Less transit, a less economically productive, socially equitable, and environmentally sustainable region does not help anyone. There you have it. It's coming. SEPTA is out there doing their thing, and too many people are going to be affected. My seniors, yeah, Trump ain't got nothing handled, whatever. My seniors are going to be affected. Young men and women who have to go to school are going to be affected. And if you all think grocery prices are high now because you blamed it on Kamala Harris, like it's her fault, when greedy people who own places like Walmart and Walgreens and CVS and Acme and Superfresh and Whole Foods, the owners, constantly increase the prices, and then you want to blame the black woman for it. All the ills of the nation, you want to lay it at the feet of Vice President Kamala Harris. And Trump had 4 years prior to a second term to do a lot of good, and he didn't. He did a lot of good for rich people. I applaud him for that. And people who are in that tax bracket, they profited greatly from it. I know people who are in that tax bracket, and they say, well, all I can say is that Trump was good for business. I said, so you don't care about nobody else except your financial portfolio. Well, see if that's helped you. See if that helps you when you're sick. See if that helps you when you're languishing on a deathbed and nobody cares about you. And nobody wants to be around you. See if your financial portfolio helps you when the people that you've used and abused and taken advantage of and spit on and walked over to climb your way to the top. See if it helps you when people walk away from you because they can't stand you. They despise you. They don't want nothing to do with you. Your money won't bring you comfort. Your money won't heal your sick body. Your financial portfolio won't keep your crumbling family together. There are many rich people in this world. I've read the biographies and I've read the autobiographies. I'll give you one. J. Paul Getty was a miserable miser. And in the end, he died alone. He was so cheap, even when his grandson was kidnapped, he did not want to pay the kidnappers. He said, just kill him. So if you don't think that the greed and avarice of rich people is real, sit back and watch what happens. You're going to see a sea of whiteness in the Trump administration and racism like you've never seen it before. Get a plan of action together. Don't let SEPTA do this to you. Never surrender. Never quit.